I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of the current state of the fleet because it's changed a fair bit since I last uploaded, and I'm going to do my best to upload a little bit more frequently. I'm an accountant by trade in addition to being an attorney, and so tax season gets really busy for me, year end through early June, and so I'm finally starting to come up for air. So I'm a little behind on some projects, but this is my 1986 560 SL. It just came back from local shop, and I might talk about that later, but it took them better part of a year to get a steering box put in. But it is generally, like, the body's in really good shape, but it came back with problems that it didn't have when it went, so I've got to get those sorted, but it's tough to prove that it didn't have it when it went. It's got the 5.6 liter V8. The interior is okay. I mean, you can see it's worn a little bit there, and the wood has gone bad, and it got a lot worse while it was sitting over at the shop. The dashboard is cracked a little bit more than when I went to the shop, but of course I didn't document that stuff prior, so it's, like I said, difficult to prove. Being the attorney, I'm always thinking about evidence. The car shows 96,000 miles. I think it's got a few more than that because the odometer works periodically, but everything here is in pretty good shape. The hardtop's up in the garage, and our plan with this is figure out why the brake light is coming on now. It's full of brake fluid. The pedal is firm, and then when I start it goes to the floor. It's drivable, but got to get that sorted. And again, this car the body's in really decent shape. It was a California car that then went to Alabama. Then I bought it in Florida and brought it back. And I like the color. I like the way it handles and drives, particularly now with in Florida I had redone all the front suspension. It was still sloppy, and that was a steering coupler. So got that sorted, and then we'll have this thing kind of ready to go probably for next summer. I think this summer's going to be a bit of a stretch. Got to see what that brake issue is, and I do have some parts coming in from FCP Euro, so I'm going to, given that wood was not in great shape anyway, and it's gotten far worse, and now the power window don't work, the switch is frozen, everything kind of went bad. I've got new wood to put in from a gentleman over in Britain that does Bentley grills, Mercedes grills, and furniture. So it's a nice chestnut. I'll put that in and may take folks along for that journey. But this car it's a nice driving, nice riding car. No air conditioning. It's R12 and it's all leaked out. And can't get R12 out here in Washington. Can't even get R134 if you don't have a license in Washington. So that's the R107. This is the latest edition. It's a 2009 S63 AMG. Just came in from Texas. This is a bucket list car for me. I've always liked normally aspirated cars. Not as big a fan of turbos. I know I had them a fair bit when I was younger. I had a Sunbird GT and a Shelby Charger, but this one is kind of a rare find, not because of the car's spec. I mean, it is extremely well spec'd car. It's got the rear seat package and panoramic sunroof and all the Distronic, all the good things. But what really makes this car unique, I know it's tough to see because of the sun being up here in Washington, that's an unusual thing, is that it has only 25,283 miles on it. It was, like I said, I picked it up out of Texas, shipped it up, and, you know, it's, like I said, it's fairly well loaded up. I'm going to be doing this because of the issues with the motors in these M156 V8s, and their issues with camshafts and lifters and head bolts and other things. It's going to get fairly well pampered. You know, 3,000, between 2,500 and 3,000 mile oil changes, and I'll continue to use it, and I'll probably at some point do the head bolts, and, you know, just consider camshaft to be a normal wear item. It's got a few little dings and dents and nicks and knacks that you'd expect from a car that's, you know, 15 years old, but it is not, you know, not in bad shape, and certainly feel like the price I paid for it was well worth the freight. This is my daily. So this is a 2008 S550 4MATIC. It's came to me out of Chicago, so I shipped this one in from Chicago. This one is a lot of car for a daily. It's a beautiful Capri blue. Love the color. It's got a upgraded LED tail lights. It does not have the, you know, backseat package. It does not have the panorama roof. It is, I don't want to say it's a stripper model. It's basically just a fairly well equipped W221. I have found I like the 221s. You can see that this one has 79,000 miles on it. These cars do not hold resale value at all. So this I bought and had shipped in. It had maybe 77,000 miles on it at the time, and it was around 10 grand total delivered. So again, it's in nice shape. Got a little bit of a vibration at idle. It's not the motor mount, and it's not the transmission mount. It's the motor mounts. Checked those, and they've been recently replaced. Suspect it may be a driveline issue, which I understand can be a problem with the 4MATICs. So I've got a road trip coming. I think this is going to be the road trip car, about 6,000 miles, and then want to get that checked. So this is, like I said, this is a daily. It has served me well. It gets about 23 miles to the gallon mixed driving, which really surprised me. That one gets about 12. That one gets about 12. So this thing gets really good gas mileage for being all-wheel drive, very comfortable, nice, quiet. This one's getting ready to go down the road. It's going on Bring a Trailer here soon. This is a 2006 S65 AMG, so it's the bi-turbo V12, putting out about 600 horsepower. It's a W220 chassis. I put these kind of in age order, except the convertible's up in the front. This one came out of a combination of Buffalo and Ontario and Illinois, and then down into Texas, and I brought this one back from Texas as well. It had failed ABC suspension, so it's got Yellow Speed Racing coilovers on it. And for those that are Mercedes purists, you know, that might be a major faux pas, and I understand the thought process. However, what I would say is the sense of security associated with not having the ABC system on it and having that ABC system fail, especially these earlier 220 models, you know, is worth the trade-off in my mind. I don't track the car. I don't drive it ridiculously hard. So, you know, the lack of sway bar and other things that you see online are more academic than they are practical. the car itself, really is a really good example. It's only got 75,000 miles on it. It's a nice, easy car to drive. Really comfortable, surprisingly comfortable, given it's a 220. I've had a couple 220s in the past, and they've been a little bit disappointing. And they're not a bad car, but they've been disappointing in comparison to the 221s. But this one, you can get the sound of the so because it's got the coilovers, you get this initial ABC message. You just hit the reset button, bang, gone. And it's hard to get tired of that. So this car has been, from a drivability perspective, and it's a little squirrely in the rain. I won't lie, but it's actually been a really good car. Had the automatic climate control went out, and there's a couple wires up in this unit here, and there's some other YouTubers who have done some good videos on it where those wires break with age, and you just have to solder in new ones, and it works fine. So we've gotten that fixed. I did that over a weekend. It actually took longer to figure out how to get the solder to flow than it did to get this thing taken down, pulled apart, put back together. Pretty easy fix. So if your air conditioning is only blowing hot unless it's on low, it's probably those two wires. It'll take you about an hour, and the dealer's going to charge you about $800. So it's a good way to save. This one is my, I want to say, second daily. This is a 2004 CL55 AMG. This is one I've had for a while. Got it from an auction, and it was ridiculously cheap, because it was throwing that same ABC light that you saw on the S65. So I did some research, and when I was looking at the pictures online and the video online, I realized that the car had coilovers on it. And so I was like, okay, how do you fix this? And you just hit the reset button. So I was the only bidder on this car. It went, like I said, ridiculously cheap. I'll at some point do a full video on it. But that was also where I was like, okay, what was used in here? Because I had put several thousand miles on this car before I did the coilover conversion on that one, and realized that the drivability and such is, not hampered by the coilovers unless you're tracking the vehicle. So this one is in pretty good shape for the age. It is actually, from a CL perspective, fairly low spec. It does not have the Distronic, does not have, neither does that AMG actually. The S65 had a Distronic and Park Assist Delete, which I hadn't seen before. But this one doesn't have Distronic, has regular cruise control, doesn't have a power pull down trunk, doesn't have a lot of like little Mercedes things that actually tend to go bad with age. And the stuff that does tend to go bad with age, like the old command system and the coilovers, have been taken out. And again, here's that white ABC message. Just hit the reset button. You can see this car now has 92,300 miles on it, which is, again, I got it about 3,000 miles ago, a couple months, 3,000 miles ago. And it has been nothing but, you know, a reliable, easy to drive car. I really enjoy this vehicle a lot. My daughter says it looks ghetto because it's two-door, but the M113K V8 in these are kind of known to be good, solid, stout, reliable cars, or reliable power plants. I've done the normal oil change. I did use Ceratec in this one, although I've been watching a lot of the videos by Lake Speed Jr. As the S63 was coming in, and have kind of gotten off on the additives, and have decided that, you know, the smarter move is probably to just change the oil a little bit more frequently, and utilize a fuel additive to make sure that the injectors stay clean so you don't get washed down on the cylinders. So but this one, like I said, I have had zero issues with this on, you know, 4 months and 3,000 miles, and it's been just a great car all around. Everything seems to work fine. Like I said, I picked up that S65 with a failed suspension at a pretty reasonable price, knowing that if I could get the suspension and air conditioning fixed, and I kind of figured out what that was, that there might be an opportunity there to either keep the car or flip it. And when that other S63 came up with those low miles, I just couldn't resist. So that one's got to go to actually make room for the black one. Then there's this one here. So this is a 1987 560 SEL. Surprisingly comfortable. You know, you get these cars and you think about how much the S-Class has changed. I don't have a 140 in here. My daughter actually has a 140 S500 coupe, a 1997, that there's another couple videos on here. But you can see I've had a, you know, 126. There's a 140 coupe missing. She and her mom have that, and then essentially the 220 and 221. I will say the 220s, you know, as much grief as they get, they're a good car. Or the 215s, they're a good car. Quality wise, yeah, they don't hold a candle to this, but they're, you know, a lot more practical for modern driving. But the 221 chassis is just, to me, seems to be the perfect blend of comfort, convenience, reliability. I am not a fan, like I said earlier, of the turbocharged cars in particular, which is also one of the reasons why I know that the AMG, the 12 cylinders, normally pretty dead nuts reliable, but, you know, I prefer normally aspirated cars generally. Although the supercharged cars, first one I've ever had with a supercharger, and it gets up and goes right away, which is a really nice feature. As a matter of fact, I would make the argument there's not much difference performance wise between the CL55 and the S65. Just don't see, in practical driving, you know, under 100 miles an hour, I don't see any difference at all. And the CL55 actually feels a bit quicker off the line. But this one here, this 126, picked it up off an estate along with its sister car, the 240D, which you'll be able to see in some other videos as well. The 240, I fixed that up and then ended up selling that. It was like I said, it was a good car, but I have the 300D, which I'll show you here in a minute, and basically said whichever one goes first is the one that goes. The 300D needed more body work, but mechanically, it needed more body work, interior work, but mechanically was in much better shape. The 240D mechanically needed a fair bit of work, but the body and interior were in better shape. And I sold it to a young guy, early 20s, aircraft mechanic. So I knew it was going to a good home, so I did end up splitting the siblings. So this one is the other car from that estate. The car, when I bought it, had 101,000 miles on it. It's a really nice example. It was, again, not ridiculously expensive, but I did have to have the guy hold it for me for a fair bit of time until I could get back to Washington. I was down in Florida. If I can get back to Washington, get it picked up. This one has had a couple little niggling things go wrong. It is cold-blooded, so when it's cold outside, it really does not want to start and stay running. Warm day like today, it's in the 50s, low 60s right now. It's fine. But this one, like I said, I've tried to keep it as original as possible. It now has 110,000, 111,000 miles on it, so I've put about 10,000 miles on it in the last year. So it's gotten a lot of use. The Becker Grand Prix stereo is one that I had sent out and had it come back with the Bluetooth adapter, so it can stream Bluetooth, which is cool, and still maintain kind of the original look and feel. This one has a little bit of cracking on the wood down there on the console, but everything else is in really good shape. So now that I've got my guy over in Britain that does these things, I may have that redone. But the car, the sad thing about the 126 is it's a extremely well built vehicle, very comfortable, enjoyable to drive. It's got ABS, it's got airbag, it's very, very high quality, but these just do not hold value. Parts are easy to get. There's a great bunch of support online, but this is not a $20,000 car. It's not even a $10,000 car probably in the way it sits. But it's it was well maintained by the prior owner. He had shift bushings, the shifter bushings redone. He had the self-leveling suspension rebuilt. And when he passed away, he was a Mercedes guy. And when he passed away, his son had sold off both of the cars, not together, but sold them off. Sold one, was going to keep the diesel, and then just found that he didn't have the time to deal with putting it back in shape, and wanted to sell it to someone who would take care of it. So that was how I was able to pick that one up. But this is, like I said, this has been a really good car. Easy, like I said, easy to drive, heavy, comfortable, quiet. And then this one. So what got me really spun into classic Mercedes was I've generally had a Mercedes around. I've had a couple E-classes, I've had a couple S-classes, I've had a couple SLs, but this one, I started watching during COVID, started watching some YouTube videos on cars because I like working on them, and I was kind of stuck at home and largely by myself down in Florida, and picked up a combination of Kent Bergsma, who's up here in Bellingham, and then Pierre Hadari, who's down in Titusville, Florida. And so I had kind of one Mercedes expert at each location that I was bouncing back and forth, and I kind of started looking at the Mercedes in general and set my sights on trying to pick up a 123. So when I got back here to Washington permanently, I was able to, there's a lot of 123s up here. And unlike Florida and a lot of other places, we in Washington State, they don't use salt on the roads for environmental reasons, and so you don't tend to see a lot of rust unless you get water intrusion. And then the other thing you don't tend to see is a lot of sun damage, because we're lucky if we see the sun. Today is being an exception. So this is a 1979 300D. It is it was actually owned by a aircraft mechanic, and he sold it to a gentleman who lives about 2 miles away, who bought it for his father-in-law to use when he was in town. His father-in-law either got ill health or just wasn't going to work, so they decided to sell the car. This one has a completely rebuilt, and I've done some videos on it, so you can go check those out. It has a completely rebuilt 5-cylinder diesel transmission. So the mechanicals on this are in really good shape. I redid the brakes, so it's kind of all good and safe. But the body on this one, now again, for those of you who have 123s, this is not going to be, you're going to be like, the body on it's fine. But the body on this one, in comparison to the other 123, the 240D, which again was a really good car, needed transmission work and a couple other things. The body on this one was a little bit rougher. It had gotten painted. It's probably been painted 5 times by the looks of kind of the sand downs that I've been doing. But the paint on the hood had completely failed, and this is all just rough and ridged. Had some rust through, like you could see there, and here where it's pitted from the prior repaint, and so it was just starting to bubble everywhere on the hood, so it needs to get sanded down. The hood, or the paint on the roof, has failed, so you can see kind of the splotchiness in spots. It's, you know, kind of ugly. The paint, there's a rust spot under the molding here that had started to go. There's a couple around the wheel arches. The paint up here had failed. So this one needed a fair bit of body work. And so my plan originally, and this is what the roof looked like before it had been, I sanded the one half, not the other. I could only do so much sanding at one time before my arms start to get numb. But that's what it looked like on the hood, as well as the roof. So I had basically planned to take this one on the road trip this summer, and combination of factors, one being it doesn't have air conditioning that works. It doesn't even have a compressor in it after the rebuild. So, you know, with no air conditioning, that makes it a little bit rough, especially when I'm driving with a teenage kid. Second was, I had a lot of hope that during tax season I'd be able to get stuff done, and, you know, the winter, and I'd be able to do more during the winter, and, you know, life gets in the way and jobs get in the way, and so I didn't get it to the point where it was painted and ready to go. So it's not ready to go, but I've got to finish up prep on this, and I've gotten a couple quotes to get it painted by folks who know what they're doing, and, you know, the cost has been a multiple of what I've paid for the car, and this was not an expensive buy by any stretch of the imagination. I'll talk a little bit about the investment in a moment, but, you know, I decided I can prep the thing, which is really where places like Mako and stuff have the biggest problem, and then have somebody shoot it. I have the equipment to shoot the paint here, but I'm a little reluctant to do it. Just not quite sure that that one of these is the right car to start with. But getting the prep work done so that when I do take it up, it's really a scratch and shoot, not a bunch of body work that needs to be done. And hopefully this one will be on the road for the winter. So my goal is to finish up the prep on this for the summer. When I get back from the road trip, get it up for paint, get it back, and then get it redone. This one here, and I'll give kind of a ride with each one of these. This one here, you can see I've gotten all the weather strippings off. It's got some crunchy under the doors that I'm working to clean off, but I do have all new weather strip in there. I've got new weather strip for the trunk, new weather strip for the doors, new weather strip for the sunroof, all of which kind of have water intrusion. I got new weather strip for front and back window. So once got to get these pulled, and you can see that's failed. Got to get these pulled, the windshield and back glass, and get those replaced. The glass is fine, but I do need all the gaskets redone. If you're going to do it right. And so the same thing here. This is, you can see that the gaskets largely failed. So I've got all new gaskets, but just need to get those done. So for each one of these, I'll give you a quick drive around the neighborhood. You can see I try and keep all my parts in each vehicle. This one, I just got out of the garage so that I can show you the car. Let me hit the. This one has the glow plugs are in parallel, so it's got a replacement. So I want to talk a little bit about cars because, again, as I mentioned, I'm a CPA, and most CPAs are not going to be ones that are going to tell you, having a fleet of Mercedes-Benzes is a good idea, and I'm going to echo that. But there's a few things to keep in mind when you're looking at vehicles, and I want to be able to share my insights with you, both from what I've experienced as well as what I've seen with some of my friends and clients. In general, if you're not mechanically inclined and you're not a car person and you're not somebody who is really willing to get your hands dirty, and you need something that is just a single car that is going to be dead nuts reliable, and you're not worried about the experience, you just want something that looks decent, I direct you toward one of the, I don't want to say older, but I direct you toward a Toyota or a Lexus. Really good cars. I had a Lexus for years. It's, I ended up just selling it a few weeks ago. Really good cars. I have nothing negative to say other than they have no soul. They're not that fun to drive, but they're always going to start and run for you. The biggest thing with Lexus and Toyota is, I've never owned a new car, don't intend to start. The biggest thing with Toyota and Lexus is you look at a Toyota or Lexus and you look at a Toyota Highlander and a Chevy Equinox, and you're like, well, wait a second, the Highlander is like 30% more, 40% more. Why should I do that? Just do that. Spend the money, because you're going to end up spending it in repairs, frustration, headaches, and you'll have the resale value on the backside. So, kind of car rule number one for me is never buy a new car, which, again, some folks are like, no, I want the warranty. It's really important to me. Okay, fine. I wouldn't do it and haven't. Rule number two is, if you're not a real car person, Toyotas, Hondas, and I'm not talking a brand new stuff. I'm not quite convinced, and given some of the issues with the Tundra of late, I'm definitely not convinced that those are the right way to go for most folks. The newer ones, let's let things kind of sort out as they make their shift over to turbocharged engines and such. But those are going to be a good choice for most folks. Is your Toyotas, your Hondas. Again, Hondas, there's a lot of stuff online, so I'm not going to get into all that stuff where, look at this, not that. You can find it out there, but Hondas, there's some years where you want to avoid them for the transmissions, and for there's the top to the SL. There's some that you want to avoid transmissions. There's some Toyotas you want to avoid for oil burning, but at the end of the day, they're all really decent, vehicles that are not going to let you down for the most part. That doesn't mean that you don't maintain them. That doesn't mean that you don't take care of them. But you have a high resale value, but they're generally going to be well worth it. This car I paid about $3,500 for with the rebuilds. So I'll probably, by the time I'm done, I'll probably have about $6,000 into it. But it's a diesel with you know, the mechanicals on it have about 50,000 miles on them. So this one I will probably last the rest of my life as long as I don't let it fall apart. So, and I'm in my 50s, so that, you know, may or may not be all that long. Hopefully it's a long time. This is my other kind of fun daily. It's a 2000 BMW 323 Ci with 5-speed and a 2.5 naturally aspirated inline six. It's got about 55,000 miles on it. It's actually a really, really fun, good car to motor around in. We're gonna go up the row here and then put the convertible away. What I'm going to try and do is just kind of block out a few of these as I do some of the work on them, so that we can get, you know, again, not necessarily a how-to. There's a lot of how-tos out there, but kind of going back to the discussion of cars generally. One of the challenges, like I said, if you can work on your own cars, or if you don't like to work on your own cars, you just want something good, reliable, you know, from mid-90s to mid-2010s, Toyota, Honda. Again, there's a couple years in there that you want to be careful with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But on balance, it's going to be tough to go wrong. When you're talking about classic cars like this one, or the 126, and now even getting into the 220s and the 140s, you better be able to do the work, a bunch of the work yourself. Because there's almost always going to be something.
Found themselves encircled.
There's almost always going to be something that needs to be done. So you can see this one came back, and it came back with the brake light on, and the pedal goes largely to the floor. Now again, don't know why, but it is full. I checked the obvious, so it's full of fluid. I don't see any brake leaks. It has this one basically also has new brakes. I did those in Florida while I was down there, so I don't know what the issue would be. But you know, this car in and of itself is, like I said, it handles extremely well. Now that it's got the steering redone, these 107 chassis are vintage. I mean, this one's an 86, but this design dates to the 60s. First, our 107s came out, I think it's 72, 71. So I mean, the design is ancient, but they're incredibly well built car. Again, this is one that mechanically I've been working on the stuff that, in my mind, the stuff that matters. So the steering, the brakes, new tires, kind of making sure it's drivable safely. And then, you know, the next step on this is going to be, I'm going to get some of this stuff fixed. Obviously got to get the brakes fixed as well. And I normally will start most of these projects myself. So I'll go, okay, is this something I can do myself, or at least give a shot and diagnose and try and get the potential issues down to a few. And then, you know, YouTube has been a great help in trying to figure out how best to work on, repair, do it yourself. Because if I had to take each one of these cars in to somewhere in order to be able to get the work done, I would probably not be able to live in my house. So all of the cars that I've got that are collectible, so these older cars are insured at Haggerty. So my entire insurance bill on the bulk of these cars is, you know, about $1,000 a year, which is really reasonable, and I like to drive them on the weekends. And these this one also has high idle, so it probably needs an idle control, and those are tough to find that are decent. But this one is, you know, for my seat, when it's running right, which is most of the time, I've never had a problem with that. The brakes are working and the interior doesn't look like crap. It's a really good, fun car to drive. I am going to work on, I'm going to start making a list, and like every weekend, I figure I'm going to work on one of the cars on the project side, and that one is the kind of my winter plan for that is to get the timing chain and guides done. I don't have any record of it ever having been done. That car I picked up for about 12 grand down in Alabama. Like I said, brought it to Florida. It's a you know, I've probably put another 4 into it on the brakes and steering box, and good chunk of that parts did the work myself. I use FCP Euro for most of the parts because they provide really they provide a lifetime guarantee, you know, and if the part ever fails, you can go back and get it, they'll replace it for free. The second thing that I like with FCP Euro is, you know, you're not getting counterfeit parts. And I've gotten enough now on Amazon and eBay to know that sometimes if it looks like it's too good to be true, it is, pricing wise. And so as a result, you end up in a situation where you're doing the work twice. So with FCP Euro and Rock Auto, which is where I'll get most of my parts, you just know that you're getting as quality a part as you're going to find. Again, with parts quality, and you'll see a bunch of things about parts quality on the internet as well. Parts quality has tended to be a little bit suspect throughout the supply chain, particularly since COVID. But you're not doing yourself any favors by trying to pick up your genuine Toyota filter, for instance, from Amazon, and then having it come in and go, this isn't a genuine Toyota filter, versus, you know, getting a good filter off of Rock Auto, where they've got control over the supply chain, or at least they've got better knowledge of the supply chain than you do on some of those other sites, the marketplace sites. So the AMG is scheduled. I'm scheduling it for its oil change today. But as I was mentioning, these cars, if you don't do a bunch of the work yourself, and I'm talking basic maintenance, so oil change, you know, basic fluid changes, spark plugs, filters, those kind of things. If you can do that yourself, these become a little bit more reasonable to afford, but you've got to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, get yourself a Toyota or a Honda or a Lexus or an Acura and enjoy trouble-free ownership, and you'll pay for your maintenance, and you can even go to the dealer, and you're probably going to end up about the same to maintain one of those cars at the dealer as someone who is maintaining one of these on their own without the work. But there's definite difference in the experience. So this one, like I said, I've thoroughly enjoyed. This one's going to get an oil change today, but I wanted to kind of get this out, and then needed to get the garage ready to go. The oil I'm going to be using in this, and I may do a separate video on that, but I'm going to be using Redline synthetic, changing it every 2,500 miles. Again, oil is cheap relative to the rockers and the cams. It's only got 25,000 miles on it now, so, you know, kind of maintaining it that way is going to be I think gives me the best chance for a long-term hold on the vehicle. And, you know, that's really, at the end of the day, that's really what I'm looking for. Take the 126, I'll put the the 126 in the garage. Like I said, I've put a lot of miles on this 126. It is just an enjoyable car to drive. Now, I don't know if I'd want to take this one cross country. I debated it. Again, it's air conditioning, doesn't blow cold. It's R12, needs a recharge. Can't find anything to recharge it with out here. Haven't converted it. Would need to pay to have it converted because I don't have an air conditioning handler's license. Freon handler's license, so you know it's kind of a pain. So I use this car, you know, it's great in the winter. Again, we don't have salt or much snow up here in western Washington, so use it a fair bit in the winter. Use it on, you know, days where it's been comfortable, nice. But I did put this one in the garage when the weather changed and pulled the BMW out, so that I use the BMW now on nice days to go run errands and do things. I would be rotating the BMW with the 560, except of course got to get the brake deal fixed and kind of deal with a few other little niggling things, so that, like I said, the 560 will probably be more in rotation next summer. This summer I just got to get a couple of those project things done and figure out what's the issue with the brakes. So it is strange because soft hoses were all changed. Not seeing any leaks. Just don't understand what the issue might be. But this one, from a kind of drivability perspective, is great. Only issue I've had on this that required repair was the dimmer switch, which you can see right there, went out one night, and so I lost all my dash lights. And about $40 later from FCP Euro and about an hour's worth of work, and that dimmer switch was replaced, and this car has been nothing but dead nuts reliable. Matter of fact, it even has, you can see it still has a foot, you know, the foot rests in the back. It's a really good car. Again, I expect this one I paid $3,500 for. I've really put almost nothing into it, and expect that, you know, it will be around as long as I am, as long as I take care of it. The mechanically, those are, you know, good engines as long as you service them properly. Again, timing chains and guides with age become an issue on the M107, so I will probably do that one after I do the SLs. So probably over the next couple of years, having jobs does impinge on your ability to actually get work done. So let's see, we're gonna go with the 550 next. So this one here has been, I picked up a couple months ago, like I said, out of Chicago. It was $10,000 delivered, 10.2 actually. A lot of car, a couple little niggling things wrong. I've had number of S-classes over the years. And this one is just, like I said, it's got a little vibration that I'm just not used to. And I've heard that the 4MATICs have, again, with a little bit of age, tend to have some issues with front transfer case, front drive line, U-joints on the front drive line, flex plates or flex discs on the main drive line. And so This one is likely the one that I'm taking on a 6,000 mile road trip. I'm here in a couple weeks, but have some work to do ahead of that. So it's gonna be due its oil change. It's got the M5 or 273 I think it's 5.5 liter V8. With Mercedes, sometimes, you know, they say it's a 550 and you'd think it's a 5.5, but it's really a 4.6 or a 5.4. And, you know, the AMG, for instance, says 6.3, but it's really a 6.2. So I think the 5.5 is actually a 5.5. But this car is really comfortable, easy to drive. Like I said, gets ridiculous gas mileage, 22.5 or so in mixed driving. I've had I've put a couple thousand miles on it in a couple months. So really, when I was using a sedan before, I largely was using the 560 SEL. Now I'm using this. The approach on this car is, you know, really drive it. That's odd. Drive it. You know, this is the daily, and then you know, I love the color combination. They're generally good, reliable cars. This one's past. It's an 08, but it's past the date where you've got timing chain sprocket issues. And if you don't know about that, Mercedes M273 and 272, so the 3.5 and 5.5 engines from 2006 through 2008, some of them have timing chain sprocket issues where the car will, the sprockets were made out of very loose or soft metal, and they will tend to degrade. And so as a result, over time, your car will go out of time, and you'll get an error code for camshaft camshaft out of time. And that's driven by that failure of that balance shaft in the 273 and the timing chain sprocket in the 272. And so that's just something you're going to want to look out for. It's not all of them, but you know, I had an E-Class, 06 E-Class, where that ended up popping up, and I had an 07 E-Class where it didn't. So, but I do like these big S-Classes. It's a really good practical car. It's a lot of car for 10 grand. Again, if something goes wrong with it, it's going to be a fortune to fix unless you can fix it yourself. Biggest thing that I've had with that one so far is the battery died. So it got shipped over. Battery died, so replaced the battery, replaced the auxiliary battery. So basically all batteries got replaced, and it's been fine since. But that one was a, you know, $500 for batteries, so that was unfun. This one, the S65, again, bought it with some issues, knowing that it had some issues, and this was an intended keeper until such time as I found that S63, and then I just couldn't help myself. You know, with that low mileage on it, I know I've got a fighting chance of actually being able to control the experience and the wear and the longevity of the car. And I'm hoping that one goes, again, that one's one that I intend to keep for a while.
Waiting for Perry.
So this one, like I said, once you get past the ABC message, click. This one is, you know, no lights, no warnings, no nothing. Now, gas mileage wise, this one I'm lucky to break into double digits most of the time. This thing is just brutal on gas. It has, and I've done a lot of work on this. So I did put new Brembo brakes on it. It's got redone, it's got new tires, new Brembo brakes. It's got the yellow speed racing coilovers. It's really kind of ready to go. This one I actually would not hesitate to drive cross country. This was, if I weren't it got accepted by Bring a Trailer, so it's going to be on Bring a Trailer here soon. But if it weren't for the fact that I'm selling it and putting it on Bring a Trailer, there is nothing about this car outside of the 9 miles to the gallon that would stop me from taking this thing fully cross country. I mean, mechanically it just seems like a bulletproof workhorse, and it's never failed to start. It's never failed to run right. When you give it the beans, it definitely goes. Air conditioning works great now. The original command system, while I'm not a big fan, sounds great. The car, the one thing it is missing is streaming Bluetooth. Most of these Mercedes didn't have that until 2010, 2011. So this one being no exception. So I've got a Bluetooth adapter in here. I've used this, I've driven this a bit. Probably put 200 miles on it since I picked it up and got all the work done. But like I said, when that S63 showed up, I just couldn't help myself. So, but these are, like I said, this one has been a really good car. What's been surprising is the seats on this are probably the most comfortable of any of the cars I've got. Just incredibly soft, supple leather. They're not too tight, not too loose. They're really comfortable for running out on long, like if I drive this thing for half an hour, 45 minutes, it feels like I'm sitting in a recliner, where on a couple of the other ones, it's definitely a tougher ride. The AMG cars in particular, they're more of a sports seat, so they're comfortable, but they're not like this AMG and the S63 are a little bit less comfortable than that S65. The S65 more comfortable than the 221s from a seat perspective, just softer. This one, but like I said, this one from a commuting perspective, normally my commute is about half an hour each way. Gives me enough time to be able to kind of get the car hot and running. So this one, again, just hit the reset button, ABC goes away. This one has been probably the most fun commuter car I've ever owned, and it gets 17 miles to the gallon, 16, 17. So it's, in comparison to the S65, this one, the performance seems about the same, at least at any practical use. And the gas mileage is about double. And from, my perspective, from a, reliability, both of them are good, reliable, have a good, reliable power plant. This one has, 92,800 miles on it. I've put a couple thousand miles on it since I got it a few months ago, and it has just been a really nice car. It's got a great stereo system that's been upgraded by the prior owner. Prior owner put a new supercharger pulley, so undersized supercharger pulley, so I don't even know what this thing's pulling for horsepower at this point. It's got the coilover, so I don't worry about it not going when I need it to go in the morning. I'm never gonna come out and see it flat against the ground, and it handles fine. So for all the folks out there that are saying, oh my god, ABC, your handling's gonna go to hell, it really isn't that much different unless you're gonna track the car. And if you are, you're probably gonna bust up the ABC anyway. As these cars age, to try and spend $4,000 or $5,000 every 4 or 5 years, $1,000 a year to keep the ABC system going, when you could spend $1,500 and put coilovers on, just doesn't make sense to me. They're never going to be, in general, you're never going to see a car that's worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars. These should be good. These are good, reliable drivers, and I like to keep them good, reliable drivers. If I had 20,000 miles on it, like the S63, that might be a different answer, but for that one there and this one here, these are just good, fun used cars. And if you could do some of the work yourself, they're not a bad choice. So kind of bottom line, you know, when the S63 I paid 11 grand for, but it's got a fair bit of work left to, you know, and I put a lot into it. Probably got 20 grand, 18 grand into it now. The S63 was 26 delivered, and this one was 7. So this one was probably, of all of them, was probably this one, and the 4MATIC was probably the best deals. But they're all, you know, good cars, but you've got to be able to do that work yourself. Again, that one has collector insurance on it. All the 3 in the garage have collector's insurance on it. You know, and then these other ones, like this one, it's got liability. It doesn't have comp collision because, again, they're just going to total the car out anyway. I'm going to self-insure, quote unquote, that amount. So, you know, the S63's got full insurance on it. The 550's got full insurance on it, but again, given the age of that car, the age of both those cars, the insurance isn't going to be that bad, and isn't that bad. So really, you know, the key to being a happy Mercedes owner is be able to do about 75% of the work yourself. It makes it affordable. If you've got some of these vehicles, you're going to want to have something that's going to be, you're able to do yourself, and you're going to want to be able to enjoy that. And if you don't, get yourself a Lexus or get yourself a Honda and enjoy that experience of trouble-free motoring. Otherwise, you know, I'm a big fan of the spirited driving, the luxury, the performance, and relative reliability of these vehicles. Again, these aren't like breaking down all the time. You'll see it on the internet. Oh my God, you know, this breaks down, that breaks down. You know, when something goes bad, and when something goes bad, especially electronics on these, it can be a fortune. But you know, like that S65, the air conditioning temperature sender went bad, and you know, dealer $800, independent mechanic $600, and for me it was about $22, and that included buying the wire to get it, you know, buying the wire and a cheap solder iron. So, you know, if you can do the work yourself, you're willing to do the work yourself, it's not that bad. If you can't, you know, like I said, Lexus, Toyota. But I will keep, I'm going to be working on each one of these, kind of rotating through. I've got a project list for each one of them. So each weekend is kind of going to be a different project. And then I also have some other vehicles that are coming in and going out that I'm going to be working on. So look forward to talking to y'all later.